The scene unfolds in a hospital room, suspended between night and morning, where medicine, love, and uncertainty quietly intersect. Dr. Aaron Hale arrives carrying not just a folder of notes, but the visible weight of long hours and difficult conversations. Kelly, steady yet exhausted, has been keeping vigil beside Mark, whose life is now supported by machines and careful attention. Their exchange is not dramatic, but deeply human. A careful navigation between hope and truth, between what medicine can offer and what it cannot promise. This story is less about sudden revelations and more about the emotional reality of waiting, listening, and choosing honesty over comfort. It explores how care is practiced not only through treatment, but through presence, transparency, and the courage to live without easy answers. A doctor's arrival, a room full of quiet wait. Dr. Hale enters the room not as a distant authority, but as a visibly tired human being carrying responsibility in his posture. His shoulders sag slightly. His eyes reflect long nights, and the thick folder in his hands signals how seriously he takes both the medical details and the family's need for clarity. Before speaking, he studies the monitors and Mark's breathing, acknowledging the fragile balance keeping him alive. This pause matters. It shows respect for the moment and for the man in the bed. When he finally turns to Kelly, the air feels heavy with unasked questions. Kelly greets him politely, though her smile trembles. She has been awake for hours, guarding Mark's presence as if sleep might loosen her hold on him. Their meeting sets the emotional tone of the entire scene. Careful, restrained, and deeply human. It is the start of a conversation not designed to deliver certainty, but to honor reality, however incomplete it may be. Questions that carry more than words. Kelly's first question sounds simple, yet they carry days of fear, hope, and quiet endurance. When she asks how Mark is doing, she is really asking what kind of future still exists in this room. Dr. Hale answers with measured honesty, describing Mark as stable, while carefully underlining how delicate that stability is. He does not inflate hope, nor does he strip it away. He explains that medicine can support the body, monitor its responses, and intervene when possible, but it cannot dictate outcomes. When Kelly asks if Mark will wake up soon, her voice softens, almost apologetic, as though even wanting an answer feels like asking too much. This exchange captures the emotional core of medical uncertainty. The words are clinical, but the meaning is deeply personal. Both understand that behind every statistic or protocol stands a life that does not move according to predictable scripts. Walking the narrow path between hope and truth. Dr. Hale chooses each sentence with care, as if placing stones across unstable ground. He speaks about the brain's unpredictable healing process and how recovery follows no reliable timeline. His tone is neither cold nor falsely reassuring. Kelly listens, nodding not because she feels comforted, but because she recognizes the language of uncertainty. She has heard similar phrases before, and she understands their limits. Yet she also senses that the doctor is holding something back, not out of deceit, but out of professional and emotional restraint. There is weight in what remains unsaid. The room becomes a space where hope is present, but not dominant, and truth is present, but not cruel. This balance is one of the quiet themes of the story. It shows how real compassion often lives in nuance, where honesty is offered gently, and hope is allowed to exist without promises. The physician beyond the white coat. As the night stretches on, the conversation shifts from technical updates to the human experience of medicine itself. Dr. Hale speaks not just as a doctor, but as someone shaped by years of responsibility. He talks about the pressure of making decisions quickly, about moments when caution and urgency must coexist, and about how outcomes sometimes resist even the best preparation. He acknowledges that some choices linger in the mind longer than others, not because they were wrong, but because reality does not always meet intention. His words quietly dismantle the image of the all-knowing physician. Instead, he presents medicine as a deeply human practice, carried out by people who care, who reflect, and who sometimes carry regret alongside dedication. This honesty creates a bridge between him and Kelly. In that room, they are not just doctor and spouse, but two people facing the same fragile truth from different sides. When truth is offered without drama, Kelly eventually asks if there is anything else she should know. Her question is calm, not confrontational. It invites honesty rather than confession. Dr. Hale hesitates, then shares details about Mark's early care, shaped by urgency and imperfect conditions. He speaks of moments that moved quickly, decisions made before clarity could fully emerge. There is no scandal in his words, no hidden wrongdoing, only the ordinary reality that emergencies are rarely neat. Yet his admission carries quiet, emotional weight. He wishes some steps had come sooner, some questions had been louder. He does not speak to assign blame, but because he believes honesty itself is a form of care. This moment reframes truth as something gentle but necessary. It shows that transparency is not about spectacle, but about respecting the humanity of those who are waiting in uncertainty. Accepting limits without losing trust. Kelly listens with her wedding ring pressed between her fingers, grounding herself in something tangible. She does not hear accusations or failure. What she hears is something more unsettling and more real, that even the most advanced systems depend on fallible people working under pressure. Dr. Hale's words do not weaken her trust. They deepen it. By acknowledging imperfection, he affirms sincerity. Kelly understands that medicine does not offer rewinds, only ongoing care. This acceptance does not erase fear, but it reframes it. Trust becomes less about expecting perfection and more about believing in continued commitment. In this way, the story portrays trust not as a blind faith, but as a relationship built on openness. Kelly's response reflects emotional maturity. She absorbs the truth not as a threat, but as part of the reality she must now inhabit, where care and limitation coexist, the private weight of a public life. As dawn light filters in, Kelly's thoughts turn inward. She is aware that loving someone in the public eye adds another layer to this experience. Private pain can easily be reshaped by outside voices into simplified narratives. Yet her concern is not headlines. It is her children. It is Mark. It is the quiet dignity of what is happening in this room. She fears how easily complexity can be flattened into stories that ignore care, patience, and nuance. This reflection expands the scene beyond the hospital bed. It shows how vulnerability becomes heavier when it risks being misunderstood. Kelly resolves to choose transparency without spectacle, honesty without performance. In doing so, she protects not just Mark's dignity, but her own. The story emphasizes that some truths are not meant to be dramatic. They are meant to be lived, slowly, and with respect. Presence as a form of strength. When the conversation ends, nothing outward has changed. Mark still sleeps. The machines still hum. Yet something inside Kelly has shifted. She remains in her chair, watching his breathing, choosing presence over despair. She does not cry or speak. She simply stays. The nurses return, the sun rises, and routine care continues. This ordinary rhythm becomes the emotional backbone of the story. Kelly's endurance is quiet, but profound. She adjusts blankets, holds a hand, whispers his name. Each act becomes a declaration against helplessness. The narrative reframes strength not as control or certainty, but as the willingness to inhabit uncertainty without fleeing from it. Recovery, if it comes, will arrive in small signs. Until then, presence itself becomes meaningful. In this room, love is not loud. It is steady, patient, and deeply human. Endurance without resolution. As the day unfolds, there are no dramatic announcements, only continued monitoring and subtle changes. Kelly learns to notice the smallest markers of life and to treat them as quiet victories. The room becomes defined by care rather than crisis. Dr. Hale's honesty, the nurse's attentiveness, and Kelly's devotion form a constellation of support that cannot be measured by machines alone. The story closes not with answers, but with a philosophy of waiting. It teaches that truth often lives in ordinary moments, that trust grows through transparency, and that love sustains through consistency. Silence becomes its own language, carrying acknowledgement, respect, and hope without promises. In the absence of resolution, something else emerges, a quiet certainty that presence matters. Kelly's choice to remain fully, attentively there becomes the strongest statement of all, affirming that endurance itself can be an act of profound care.